Hey everyone, and welcome to WDIM Plus, where today I'll be taking a look at the 5th episode of the Dexter New Blood miniseries titled Runaway. This chapter of the story seemed to jumpstart the plotline at warp speed, which is not uncommon for a season at its midpoint, while answering a couple of lingering questions and creating new problems for the residents of Iron Lake. We now finally know the identity of the runaway killer, but his motives and ritual are still very much a mystery. Also, after claiming that falling off the wagon by killing Matt Caldwell was a one-time thing, Dexter proved that his dark passenger can still take the wheel when needed, while a person from Dexter's past may have unwittingly unraveled his future. Harrison is also still a mystery, after an altercation with Dexter may have brought on his own dark passenger and almost cost him his life. I will go into all of this and more, but if you could please do me a favor right now and hit that like button on the video, I would really appreciate it. Also, if you continue to come back each week, please hit that subscribe button as well. The title of the episode is a direct reference to the runaway girls in the area that we learn are being ritualistically killed by local town hero Kurt Caldwell. He is shown to be rich and own at least a truck stop diner where plenty of runaway women are sure to pass through on their way to New York City. The title is also a reference to the song Runaway by Del Shannon that Kurt plays at least twice during his ritual, once while watching the girls in captivity and once again at a local bar. But the title is also a microcosm of all the issues concerning the major characters on the series, as Dexter is having more and more issues come back to haunt him after running away from his life in Miami. Not only is his dark passenger re-emerging, but his fake identity is unraveling as well. Much of this has to do with the fact that he also ran away from Harrison, who is becoming a catalyst for a lot of these events now in Dexter's life. In this episode, Harrison not only reveals that Dexter is using a fake identity in a moment of weakness, but also causes Dexter to almost kill two men because of a drug overdose. Harrison is also dealing with issues that he is trying to run away from, as his guilt over his actions at school with Ethan caused him to act irresponsibly and put his life in jeopardy. Instead of dealing with these issues, he decides to leave Iron Lake by the end of the episode, but is stopped by Kurt. Matt, Kurt's son, is also still an issue and causes Angela to travel to New York City, thinking that he is trying to run away from her inquiry. While there, she learns more about Jim, aka Dexter, than she hoped to, and now is faced with an even larger personal dilemma while also being no closer to resolving her case with Matt. The episode begins with Dexter speaking with Deborah about the straight razor in Harrison's room and his actions at school. Deborah is still very aggressive with Dexter and tries to convince him that he will turn Harrison into a monster. It is interesting that Dexter has manifested this personality for Deb, because if you recall at the end of the series, she told him that she wanted him to be happy. Much of the 9th season was Dexter and Deb working through the fact that Deb learned that Dexter was a serial killer, and this version of Deb we see on the series is more akin to how she behaved earlier in that season. After the intro, we see the young girl from the last episode, named Chloe, enter the cabin with Kurt, which is the same cabin that we saw in the prior episodes as part of the murder ritual. This confirms that he is the killer, and it may also speak to his motivations as well. He speaks in this episode about paying it forward and doing right by people, and I think that in his own way, this is what he believes he is doing with these women. Chloe even says that she could die happy now after learning of all the room's amenities, which brings a smile to his face. I believe that he thinks that these girls would end up dead or worse as runaways if he did nothing. So by spoiling them before murdering them, he is giving them some happiness before he takes their lives in a humane fashion. As I mentioned in a prior video, this is similar to the ritual of the Trinity Killer, in which he would kill a 10-year-old boy to preserve his innocence. In Arthur Miller's mind, he was doing something good for these children when in actuality he was just killing them compulsively. Angel learns from Logan that Matt's credit cards have been used at the Gramercy Hotel in Manhattan, and her and Molly Park decide to travel to confront him. Angela also mentions wanting to go to a missing persons conference. Back at Dexter's home, he confronts Harrison about the straight razor. Dexter wants him to open up to him so that he can as well, but Harrison does not trust Dexter. Outside, Harrison gets invited to a party by Zach, which turns out to be a party with all the people on the kill list created by Ethan. The irony, of course, being that the teens there are all doing unregulated illicit drugs that could kill them at any time. In town, Dexter goes to a bar for a drink and gets the name of a therapist for Harrison. In walks Kurt and plays the song Runaway, and Tess tells Dexter that Kurt is in the bar and plays the song every couple of months. This confirms that this is also part of Kurt's ritual and that he is a very active serial killer. Harrison becomes overwhelmed at the party and takes something that causes him to pass out. Before he does, he reveals to Audrey that Jim Lindsay is not Dexter's real name. Logan is able to revive Harrison after giving him Narcan, which is something used to reverse the effects of opioids. Dexter rushes to the hospital and learns that the drug Harrison actually took was fentanyl. After Logan conveniently reveals to Dexter the name of their suspect, Dexter takes Harrison home. After Dexter leaves Harrison alone, Harrison gets his things together and decides to leave Iron Lake for good. He seems to think that Dexter does not care about him, but in fact, Dexter is leaving so that he can hunt down the person responsible for supplying the drugs that his son took. While it is reasonable that Dexter would want revenge, he does seem to jump to want to hunt down this person rather quickly after claiming that his killing of Matt was just a slip-up. Dexter is even able to procure the same animal tranquilizer he used when he was an active serial killer from a local veterinarian, and I would have to think that no vet would give away such powerful drugs so easily. Dexter also walks past some dogs that freak out when they see him, and we learned on the original series that dogs have always acted this way towards him. Dexter believes that this is because of the way he treated them when he was a child, and Harry would not even let Deborah have a dog that she wanted because he was afraid of what Dexter would do. At a dive bar in a nearby town, Dexter is able to track down the dealer. He asks for some blues, which I can't help but think is a reference to an infamous series that was centered around a blue drug, Breaking Bad. The dealer Miles is even wearing a red shirt, which is a trademark of Jesse Pinkman, one of the main characters on the show. Before Dexter can abduct him, Logan arrives, which requires Dexter to improvise and attack the dealer instead. Much like how Harrison possibly covered up his actions at school, Dexter is able to do something similar here and act like an angry father instead of a serial killer. Angela and Molly get to the missing persons conference, and we see none other than David Zaz as Angel Bautista. He is introduced as the captain of Miami Homicide, so evidently he has been promoted from lieutenant since we last saw him and is still on the force. Angel had retired to run a restaurant, but came back in the last season as lieutenant after the death of Maria LaGuardia. Chloe tries to seduce Kurt into entering the room, but Kurt is not interested and becomes incensed. This makes me think that this ritual has something to do with a family member of his, possibly his sister. He mentions later on that his father was not very caring and that they may have been poor, so perhaps his father is connected to his psychosis. She is allowed to escape due to her behavior, but instead of running away, she runs towards Kurt, which causes him to shoot her in the eye. He becomes very agitated by the entire situation and even gets a cut on the cheek during the melee. At the conference, Angel discusses his experience with the Bay Harbor Butcher and how the victims were connected. This seems to inspire Angela, who discusses her work with missing girls with Angel afterwards. Through their conversation, Angel brings up Deborah as a detective that reminds him of Angela's situation. Angel also brings up the fact that she had a brother who had a son named Harrison. Now, outside of actors who have starred in Star Wars movies, I don't think there are many people named Harrison out there, but it is a huge coincidence that Angela and Angela not only met, but also that he brings up Harrison's name. I almost feel like this whole scene was shoehorned into the series because they wanted to find a way to bring Angel back, if only for one scene. Besides Dexter, he and Vince Masuka were the only main characters introduced in the first season that survived until the end of the series, so it is nice to see him. But it is such a crazy connection that it almost hurts the story, so I'd rather have seen him or someone else in a flashback if they felt it was needed. I remember when James Dokes appeared in one episode of Season 7 in a flashback, and honestly, I think it was one of my favorite parts of the entire season. Dexter hunts down the drug producer and gets him set up to be killed just as he notices that Logan has arrived. Instead of his usual ritual, he's able to stage the death so that it looks like the dealer committed suicide. This scene is important because it shows Dexter doing something very similar to what Harrison did at school, which is stage a crime to cover up his own crimes. It also shows that Dexter does not have to follow his ritual to feel complete, whereas we see Kurt unable to deviate from his ritual in the slightest without completely falling apart. On his way out of town, Harrison is stopped by Kurt, who gives him a free meal at his truck stop. Kurt is able to convince him to stay and tries to give him a job. Kurt also mentions trying to do something good for the people that make you the angriest. This way of thinking is very common in people who have suffered from child abuse, as abusive parents will often try to overcompensate for their own guilt with lavish gifts after doing something horrible to their children. This may be another hint as to Kurt's past and his own abuse that led him to being a killer. Kurt also mentions that Harrison will never be able to outrun his rage, which also works into the theme and title of the episode. At the hotel, Angela is able to see that the man that checked out was not Matt Caldwell and that Kurt is covering for his son. In the last episode, Dexter thought that Kurt may be lying about Matt so that he can find the killer himself, but this episode seems to infer that Kurt is not able to kill without his ritual, so that is probably not the case. It is more likely that Kurt may want to write Matt off and not have Angela look into him. Kurt may also believe that if Angela continues to look for Matt, that she will figure out what he is doing with Runaways. When Angela gets home, she learns from Audrey that Dexter's real name is not Jim Lindsay. She goes online and finds the obituary for Dexter Morgan, which includes a picture. As the end credits roll, the song Ketamine by the band Princess Goes to the Butterfly Museum is played. This song actually has a lot of connections to the series. For instance, ketamine is the drug that Dexter uses to incapacitate his victims and is the one he gets from the vet in this episode. Also, the band is fronted by none other than Dexter himself, Michael C. Hall. I listened to some of their songs and I thought they were pretty decent and sounded similar to bands like Julian Kay and She Wants Revenge. But watching them, it is hard not to just see Dexter singing in a band. Well, that was everything I saw, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?